It is Midday Live, Land Sweden, Dr. Drew. Our number is 800-222-5222. Attorney John M. Phillips. Give us a little background on the Tiger Woods wrongful death lawsuit. Of course, this is John M. Phillips, not our John Phillips.
No,
not to be
Phillips.
confused.
Yeah.
John, welcome back.
It's an East Coast, West Coast thing. I'm East Coast John Phillips,
That's
West
right.
Coast John Phillips.
There you go. Fair enough. So there's a wrongful death suit. Somebody left his Tiger's bar and drunk and got in an accident. Yes?
Yes. So Tiger owns a bar and restaurant called The Woods here in Florida, and it was actually a bartender. So he had a bartender who stayed after his shift and consumed a lot of alcohol, 0.24, 0.25 by postmortem examination, and had a one-car accident, meaning only he was involved, and it was fatal. And so it was about a year ago, and his family has sued the bar, Tiger, and apparently his girlfriend, who's some sort of manager in the bar and restaurant. And the next question is, well, what does Florida law say about that? And Florida law actually says, under the old Dram Shop Act, that is a valid lawsuit to the extent that you can show that the person was a known drunkard or habitual drinker.
Oh, boy.
Wait. Say the law again. A little confusing to me.
Yes. So a person who gets drunk let me step back. So a person that gets involved in any sort of incident, whether they're causing somebody else's death or causing injury to themselves, can sue the bar for being overserved, essentially, based upon what's called a Dram Shop Act. And it puts liability on the bar, on the bartenders, on the management of the bar for over-serving someone, for somebody drinking too much, if that person is known to consume alcohol habitually or the old law is a known drunkard.
But wait, so the bar knew that this bartender guy was a drunk?
I think the bartender served himself. Right?
He was off duty. It goes back to the old expression.
Wait, okay, so this guy was a bartender at that bar?
Yeah.
Oh, I see.
Correct.
I see.
Off after hours.
Got it.
And so where this one's interesting, and normally I don't go with the frivolous lawsuit thing, but this one's more in that direction. But where this one's interesting, and it relates to Florida law, is apparently this bartender was known to be treating it at AA, and was known to have an issue, and his lawyers claim and his family claims that that was largely the notice that he was in recovery, but the bar brought him out of this nefarious Tiger Woods owned bar, brought him out of recovery, and
to work?
And led him to drunk driving and getting in this wreck.
Oh boy!
It all sounds a little bit
like a stretch,
suspicious.
Yeah.
In that he's an alcoholic. Everyone knew he's an alcoholic. He drank. He visited the bar as a customer.
Sounds like he stayed after his shift and they served it.
So he was working that night as the bartender.
I'm going to say foul. The alcoholics in relapse do it very cagey ways. And I'm sure he was ashamed, and I'm sure he didn't share what he was doing with anybody there. I'm sure of it. Do we have any evidence of what? I guess it's all shut down now, right? No one's saying anything.
Right. So right now it's just a civil complaint that's circulating around the internet. And when I saw it this morning, East Coast time, about I think I saw it at 7, so about 4 o'clock your producer's time. My first thought was, what does Dr. Drew think about this? It does deal with recovery.
Yeah, and allegedly Tiger's in some kind of recovery or something, it seems like, too. And
And just curious, who was the person serving him drinks if he was there?
That's the point.
Maybe because wasn't there a woman that was just arrested after years later of a guy that died leaving her bar? She was a bartender in another state just a couple of days ago, was arrested for a guy that died as she supposedly overserved him. I mean, who was the person working the bar that night when he was staying over and he got drunk? I mean, is there video footage of this at the bar? I mean,
you can imagine. And I'm gonna bet they are just looking for a settlement. Number one,
right? That's what I'm saying. I mean, who else was in the bar?
Right. And number two, how much is the responsibility of the bartender or the manager there to prevent him from drinking? You know what I'm saying?
Right.
It's one thing to say you overserve somebody. The other is what is your obligation to stand in the way of somebody's addiction, and that's
self-responsibility, or
it's highly personal that stuff. I mean, I'd stand in the way because I know how to do it. Most people don't know how to do it.
And to your point about whether someone hides it certainly if the guy was had a lampshade on his head, as that old analogy, and dancing around, and then they threw him his keys and said, "See you tomorrow."
Yeah.
That's one thing, and just to show you what a class act Tiger Woods is, he was quoted as saying, "We're all very sad that Nick passed away. It was a terrible night, a terrible ending, and we feel bad for him and his entire family. It's very sad." Whereas most lawyers tell these guys,
shut up.
Don't comment.
Yeah.
He said the right things, which seem pretty sincere.
We're talking to attorney John M. Phillips. We're going to take a little break. We're talking about Tiger Woods and this wrongful death suit. Our number is 800-222-5222. You can find John M. Phillips at floridajustice.com. That's Leon Tweeden. I'm Dr. Drew. This is Midday Live, AM 790 KBC. It is Midday Live. Leon Tweeden, Dr. Drew. We're speaking with attorney John M. Phillips. You can find him at floridajustice.com. And we were talking about the lawsuit filed against Tiger Woods restaurant. And, John, there's we have a caller that wants to make an interesting point, so let's go right to that. Catherine, go ahead.
Hi, Dr. Drew. I love your show. It's wonderful.
Well, thank you, Catherine.
But in my 20s, I was part owner of a bar and a bartender. And I remember it was pretty local, La Cañada. I remember this. A lot of our alcoholics used to go down Foothill, and in every bar they'd have a drink and then come in our bar. Well, this guy seemed fine. I served him 2 drinks, but he ended up taking pills as well. We found out later. And so we have no control over that. He ended up rolling him on the ground. We couldn't get him out of the place. We had to hire a cab for him. He didn't know even where he lived. I mean, so all of a sudden this comes on quickly.
Yeah.
I had served him 2 drinks. So, they've done this in California. They've tried to hold bartenders responsible. I don't think it's ever worked unless it's some unusual situation. Now, if a guy came in there with a tin hat, nobody would serve him. I mean, if it was that obvious. But a lot of times they're not. They quietly get on the bar. So this guy, it sounds like, probably served himself all night.
Yeah.
So I don't know if he got off work, sat on the bar. A lot of bartenders do that. A lot of people that work in restaurants do that. They'll have a drink at the end of their shift. But I think these people are looking for a money grab.
Well, of course. Attorney, John, what do you say?
You're a pro-alcoholic, too. Can't you hold your alcohol a lot better than, say, somebody like me who never drinks?
Yeah.
All of these cases come down to a level of discovery and fact-finding to determine, look, if you've got a bartender that rang up somebody with 17 scotch and waters or 17, shots, that's one scenario. But like your caller scenario, it's hard to pin. I bartended in law school. We never got sued. And I was in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, which is a party town, and we were allowed to have a beer behind the bar. But in this situation, I imagine there is going to be no receipt because he was drinking with friends and coworkers, and it's just kind of the nature of the gig that if you're a bartender, there's lines, and nobody knows the cab number better than the bartender.
Hey, John, before I let you go, was one other question I'm asking of all our attorney friends. We cannot get our politicians in this state, and particularly in this city and county, to pay attention to some of the egregious phenomenon that are befalling our community, primarily what's happening around homelessness. I want to create a campaign that removes their qualified immunity so they can be held accountable for reckless negligence. People are dying because of their lack of attention to the languishing in the streets. How do I do that? How do I get rid of qualified immunity? Is that impossible?
It's really tough. Florida is almost as bad of sovereign and qualified immunity as anywhere, and you've got to find ways to either pierce the veil and make them responsible, or get a legislative change. And people, they because you're dealing with governmental budgets, they don't want to expose it. But meanwhile, there's so much that could be done that really would help us have a better society and be more fair.
If you or I were engaged in reckless negligence, we would be held accountable. Any of us would
fully
be.
And finally.
Any of us would be. The only people that I know of in our society that are not are politicians, and they're the ones having the most egregious impact on our well-being. They need to serve the citizens, and it needs to matter to them. And that's it. So it's time to go. It's time. I'm sorry. We have to do this. They've done it to themselves.
Dr. Drew, the king can do no wrong is where it dates back to common law, and you're 100% right. The king was often the one doing the worst.
We fought a revolution to detach ourselves from those anarchical and ancient monarchical societies. So let's finish the job. All right, John, thank you so much. Good to talk to you.
Thank you.
Sign me in. I'm in for that cause.
All right, done and done. Right. John M. Phillips is going to help me out on this. You can find him at floridajustice.com. That's Dan Tweeden. I'm Dr. Drew. It's Midday Live at AM 790 KBC.